Hello, and welcome to the second episode of Partially Scientific, the overhyped and extremely ambitious podcast created by PJ Rollins. My guest today is Jacob Donaldson, member of the maker community, self-described super nerd, and the freshest cow poly slow admit I know.
Hello.
Our topic today is 8 crazy animals. You'll never guess number 6! Exclamation point, question mark, 1 exclamation point, question mark. Jacob and I have each researched 4 animals that we think have evolved incredible adaptations that are almost too funky to believe. I'm going to start things out with a classic. You probably all know and love it, the kiwi. Besides being the national symbol of New Zealand, the kiwi is extremely odd in the sense that it's almost alone in its family of birds. For those of you who don't know, a kiwi is a small flightless bird found in New Zealand about the size of a chicken. It's related to ostriches and emus, but its closest relative is actually the elephant bird, a stark contrast to the kiwi's diminutive size. It was first discovered by white people in 1811, despite the Maori, the native New Zealanders, knowing that they existed for a pretty long time beforehand. They actually believed that they were protected by Tane Muhata, a god of the forest who was a tree. So these kiwi were pretty sacred animals to the natives. And the white people showed up and were kind of wondering like what was going on. So they took a dead one back to England, as you do. There's 5 species of kiwi that are alive today, 2 of which are extremely vulnerable, are labeled as vulnerable, 1 of which is labeled as endangered, and 1 of which is critically endangered. They exist in small pockets all over New Zealand, and the smallest of the kiwi families actually exist on islands isolated from predators, because introduced predators like wild boars, cats, and dogs have hunted the kiwis extremely devastatingly to their numbers. My crazy adaptation that I picked up for the kiwi is their sense of smell. A lot of birds, like hawks and falcons, hunt by sight. They have incredibly good eyes compared to humans. But kiwis have a really well-developed sense of smell for a bird that allows them to not actually use their eyes for hunting. They eat grubs and insects, so whenever they're hungry, they just stick their face into the ground and sniff around till they smell out a small grub in the brush, at which point they'll eat it.
How big is a kiwi?
It's about chicken size. That's like the large or small kiwis, but the smaller ones I would say are about 2 grapefruits put together. That's
2 grapefruits put together.
Yeah, that's an accurate unit of measurement in my book. So that's what they eat, and then their eggs are crazy big, despite being the same size as a chicken.
So how big are like the young when they hatch?
Well, the eggs are 3 times the size of a chicken egg.
Oh, geez.
So the eggs you get from the grocery store, put 3 of those together. At the peak of it, they make up 30% of the body weight of the adult female kiwi.
Holy! How do you give birth to that? How do you lay eggs that big?
It gets to the point where for the last 3 to 6 days of a pregnancy, the mom kiwi cannot eat because her stomach is squished. So after going through some extreme labor pains, this egg pops out. It's like a 60 to 90
Does it only lay 1 egg at a time?
Yeah. 60 to 90 day incubation period, and there's a few species do 1 egg a year, while other ones will do 2 to 3 eggs a year. But it's a pretty low breeding species, which makes it, that's why it contributes to its endangered status, because it's so easily hunted, and like something in the wild, something like only 30% of natural born kiwis make it to adulthood.
Oh, jeez.
So there are some conservation projects where people will go out and steal baby kiwis, raise them in captivity, and then release them out into nature.
Is it just New Zealand, or are they
just New Zealand? There's like a number, like under 50 kiwis exist outside of New Zealand, and they're in zoos around the world.
Dang.
Yeah, so they're pretty funny. They mate for life, which is really cute. So you get little kiwi moms.
Anything that mates
dad.
for life is the best.
Anything that mates for life, you instantly feel attached to. So they're really interesting. Their feathers are different than most birds. They're almost like a fur. They've lost almost all their flight wings.
So they can't even extend their wings?
No, their arms
they're pretty
are
much just legs with,
they're not even usable. They're just, they're poof balls with legs. That's all they're good for. But they're really cute.
Did they have like ancestors that did have flight?
Well, they're related to ostriches, emus, and cassowaries. And those, they can kind of do a little bit of short hop, but not really anything. But their ancestors could fly.
Well, I've seen that picture. It looks like it's in like a cave sort. Is it like a nest or?
Well, they hunt at night.
Oh.
So this photo is taken with flash.
Jeez. Okay.
That's why.
Just kidding. It's in the brush.
Yeah. But the elephant birds that they're the closest like related to.
Holy crap! That looks like an ostrich.
They're basically ostriches.
Wow.
Where is it?
Are they related to ostriches or no?
It's like twice the size of a human being.
Oh.
Its closest like relative is twice the size. Its closest relative lived up until the 17th century.
17th century?
So 100 years before the U.S. was popping off as a country, there was something that was twice the size of a human being cruising around Australia.
Were they hunted to extinction or just natural?
Hold on. I don't know. We'll leave that for another day. But
holy crap, they're thick.
They're really big and intimidating.
Jeez.
So that kind of wraps up the kiwi. You know
wait, how many? Wait, yeah, so I asked, does it have a nest? Does it build a nest?
Yeah, it builds a nest.
Okay.
Yeah, it kind of chills out during the daytime. And so there's a map. I'll put it in the description or on the video.
Do you know how long it takes for their young to leave the nest?
I think it's in a period of a few weeks. They will raise it for... They'll take a baby kiwi and raise it until it's about 42 ounces. And then that raises its chance of surviving to adulthood from 5% to being born in the wild to 65% chance of being raised a little bit in captivity. So they're pretty cool. They are a national symbol for New Zealand, but not many people know more about them other than the fact that they just appear on New Zealand's stamp. Jacob, I think you have another member of the avian family for us.
So my animal is also a bird, but they're kind of like under researched for being as weird as they are. They were just recently, it was just a recent research effort in the past few years.
Well,
but
what type of bird is it?
It's the butcherbird. They're songbirds that are related to the Australian magpie, and they were just placed in the same genus as them just a few years ago. But they're really weird because just being songbirds, they hunt prey much larger than any other songbird ever hunts. So they're called butcherbirds because they don't have talons, so they have no way of killing prey just by themselves. So they pick up prey and they skewer them on sharp objects, usually like ferns or like rocks. Some of them use rocks, but most of them use cactuses or other things. But this is partly because they have there's a long time for their chicks till their chicks mature enough to go on their own, so they have to store food for them. So they hunt their prey, they stab them on skewers essentially. It looks like medieval Europe or something with like heads on pikes, but then the small birds can fly over to the cactuses or wherever they skewered them to and eat their meals right off the skewer. It's crazy. You'll see pictures of butcherbirds like nests right next to a cactus that has like 15 lizards just destroyed on top of the cactus. It's pretty insane. But yeah. They're really weird. Like you see them fly up next to the prey that they're catching, and the prey is sometimes like as large as them. It's ridiculous.
Do they really does all the hanging prey like attract animals to try to eat their like stored food?
They pick things that are like too tall for.
Oh, so they're out of reach.
They're out of reach, and they're a desert bird. So.
Oh, that's interesting.
They don't have too much There's like stories like vultures being a problem, but usually the butcherbird usually when a vulture is actively stealing their food, the bird doesn't live much longer because it doesn't have a food source. But ground animals aren't a problem because they put on a cactus. A ground animal isn't gonna climb up a cactus for food because that would probably hurt it.
Yeah. So this is kind of funny because you said they're related to the magpie. And magpies are notorious for being absolute, like, assholes of birds.
Yeah.
Where if you go anywhere outside in Australia during a certain month, they will attack you and make an active effort to just make your life hell.
Yeah. They're kind of the same thing, but
so is it only butcherbirds that this sort of activity is
I think this is the only one that they've
observed
documented, yeah. It talks about this not in this article I have it open right now, but in another article it talked about explorers who thought they were just they spent a lot of time away from the nest hunting.
Okay.
And they thought they were just songbirds like any other. But only recently they realized that they have these like bases of operations where they store all their butchered meat.
So are there any other songbirds that just eat meat like that?
I mean, I'm guessing there are that like eat like other organisms that are small, but these like these animals are eating stuff way bigger than any other songbird does, and it doesn't have talons, so
how do you jump from being like a songbird
I
eating
don't
some
know.
seeds to just eating straight up meat?
I'm guessing that's what they're trying to figure out, because it's weird that this. I mean, one of these birds probably back in the day probably didn't.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay, so they started out as insect eaters.
Yeah, but just like any other songbird.
And then over time it was like an evolved trait.
Yeah, it's probably just because there was a shortage on insects.
And so they figured
they resorted to that.
And is it a?
I know that they eat insects mostly themselves, but when they have young, there's a spike in the amount of bigger animals that they eat because that's what they put on the hooks to store for their young.
And is it a trait or a skill that's passed on from generation to generation, or is it sort of like intrinsic to their nature?
I'm not sure. I think it's taught. I think that's why they have to stay in the nest for so much longer. They see their parent come back with more food and hook them on the because they're not dead. Like, what kills them is putting them on these hooks. They don't kill them beforehand.
So they just grab them and drop them on this.
They talk about there's similar birds to them, but you can see that their beaks are much bigger. They probably evolved that trait so they could pick up bigger organisms. It's a lot of lizards. That sort of deal. That's the butcher bird.
That is funky.
It's weird.
That's a funky bird.
It's. I think there's one clip in the new Planet Earth, where they only got one shot of it actually killing something, and it was a mouse, and it had it by the tail.
Oh my!
And mouse is squirming back and forth, and then it just gets spiked.
So did the butcher bird force it into the spikes, or like drop it on the spikes?
It forces it into the spikes.
That is.
Yeah. Well, it like forced it onto it, and then like it got on like the edge, like the spike more close to the cactus, and like pulled on its tail to pull it further in.
Oh wow!
But the spike wasn't. It looks to me like most of them die to starvation, like on the spike. Yeah.
Oh wow!
Because the spike in itself isn't enough to. Sometimes you see like a lizard with like a spike through its head, and that's obviously a kill shot. But like some of them are like hanging on just like by their skin, so I'm guessing it's just hanging there like. Then it starves.
That is the beauty of nature.
Dude, nature is metal.
It is. It's a bird eat lizard world out there.
I mean, it's a pretty black and white bird, but it's pretty intense.
That is pretty intense. Now we're gonna move from some big birds down to some tiny animals. Some very tiny animals. If you were a fan of the TV show Cosmos, hosted by Neil deGrasse Tyson like me, you will for sure remember the tardigrade. Known as water bears or moss piglets, they're little tiny 8-legged animals that chill out around wet moss. Now, you think, moss, that's soft, water bear, it's probably cute and cuddly. These things are so hardcore you have no idea. They're not like the butcherbird where they hunt down prey and skewer them on rocks. The tardigrade does not die. In its sort of natural moss-eating phase, it chills out and it can be crushed pretty easily. But if that moss dries up, if the temperature gets a little bit too hot or too cold, and food becomes scarce, the tardigrade, with a process called cryptobiosis, drops its metabolism to 1% of what it usually is, and evaporates water out to 3% of its usual water concentration, essentially turning itself into a little tiny stone. And while it's in this little tiny stone phase, it can survive temperatures of 1 degree Kelvin for a period of like a few days, up to 420 degrees Kelvin, that's 300 degrees Fahrenheit, and 1 degree Kelvin is like negative 458 degrees Fahrenheit. It can survive that for a few hours, and pressures 6 times deeper than the Marianas Trench, the vacuum of space, and ionizing radiation. these things, when they're in their little special like rock phase, they're almost indestructible. They can come back from anything, but it's important to note that they're not extremophiles, as they've been improperly labeled by the YouTube channel SciShow, because extremophiles, the definition is they thrive in extreme environments. The tardigrade, moreover, survives in extreme environments. But it's still an awesome, awesome animal, and it got its name from this French dude back in 1777. So right after the U.S. comes into power, this French dude is peering through a microscope and sees this little thing in a drop of water that he got from some moss, and he said, that thing looks like it walks the way that a bear does. I'm gonna call it a water bear. His name was Lazzaro Spallanzani. So two great things came into existence in 1776: the United States and the tardigrade. I mean, these things have been found on every single continent of the planet and every single biome on the planet. They're incredibly sturdy, and they're actually multicellular organisms compared to most extremophiles, which are single.
Well, how many cells are in one of them?
40,000.
40,000?
But some of them, the smaller ones, can have less.
That is, I mean, 40,000 is a big number, but for cells, that's like
not
nothing.
A lot.
That's nothing.
They basically eat little bits of moss. Wow. It's pretty funny. They're actually pretty cute.
They're not bad looking.
They look kind of like caterpillars with more faces. And the fact that they have
like this exoskeleton looking exterior where they have like these shells.
Yeah, it looks kind of like a
armadillo or something.
Like a roly-poly. Not like a roly-poly, but like those kind of like segments like a roly-poly.
Mm-hmm. And
some theories as to why the tardigrade is able to deal with things like the vacuum of space. You don't really interact with the vacuum of space down here on Earth, so tardigrades are a leading evidence of leading sort of motivator behind the idea of panspermia. That like, why would this animal be able to survive such extreme temperatures and the vacuum of space for a prolonged period of time? Yeah. When it lives on moss.
That's still an unanswered question. Right?
We have no idea where life came from.
Yeah, of course.
But it could have come from a tardigrade just chilling out on an asteroid a billion years ago.
But what's weird is that so not what's weird, but like I have they talk about bringing it to space and stuff and like, leaving it out in the vacuum of space. Like, do they supply it with moss for food, or how long can it go without food?
Before they would put it up in space, they would like put it into the cryptobiosis stage.
Okay, that's when it goes in dormant.
In cryptobiosis,
that's when they're invincible.
In optimal conditions, they've come back after 30 years, and then like reproduce within a week.
That's crazy. So if they're not in that cryptobiosis, they're not as resilient.
They're not as resilient.
Oh, okay.
They're pretty weak.
So they pretty much just die.
They die pretty easily if like you were to surprise them in like the moss habitat. Oh. You could like probably not really squish one, but like
what is cryptobiosis? Is that where they literally just
they dry themselves out, slow down their metabolism, and curl up in a ball, and they become like this little tiny like chunk of just it's like kind of like becoming a rock.
Huh.
And then you put them back in water, and they moisten up, and they pop out, and they're cool, dude, I'm ready to roll again.
Huh. That's so weird.
They're really cool. People like them because they can survive space. There was a mission of the EU that was actually called Oddest, which was tardigrades in space. So it's a super nerdy thing doing even nerdier things.
So, yeah.
But they're awesome little things.
That is a weird question of why they would
have that adaptation.
Well, they have this this dormant state. Is that ever triggered just by being in their habitat?
Well, yeah. If you're on a piece of moss and the moss dries up, and you really can't get anywhere, you just
wait for another.
So, like during fall or winter, when things get cold and all the water freezes up, they'll go into that stage, and then spring shows up. Everything starts. Everything starts melting.
It's like hibernation.
Yeah, it's like a sort of hibernation.
Huh.
That's the tardigrade. Funky little animal. does some really cool things.
It's freaking weird. Okay, so me up.
Jacob, you're off.
Okay, so my next animal is freaking huge for what it is. It's called the coconut crab. It has many different names depending on who you ask, but coconut crab, also known as the robber crab and the palm thief. I'll explain why it has those other names, but it's the largest living arthropod in the world.
So just how big is it?
So at adult stage, it's a meter across. It's a big crab. It's a big crab.
For those of you U.S. imperialists, that's about 3 feet.
Yeah, 3 feet across. 3 feet 3 inches, if you want to be specific. But from leg to leg. Obviously, it's not the body, but
that's
still,
that's a serious amount of crab.
its body does take up most. It doesn't have like super long legs like a king crab or anything like that. But they can weigh up to 9 pounds. 9 pounds is a pretty sizable crab. And it gets these other names, the robber crab and the palm thief, because the cool thing about this is they will literally eat anything that it can possibly get its hands on, like literally anything, like things that you wouldn't think are edible. Like there's stories of it, like you leave, and this has also been a detriment to them when humans get involved. But they'll, anything that is kind of they notice that is outside of their habitat, they eat because they think it could be a source of
like an animal
food.
or something that came in.
Yeah, so anything that seems out of the ordinary, they eat because they assume it's food. So they eat a lot of like fallen trees for nutrients. They just freaking chomp on it, or literally anything out of necessity. But that's why they're called the robber crab, is because there's stories of like people on the beach who leave something and then they'll come back and it will just be gone because a crab took it because it's like, oh, I'm hungry. But obviously that comes in as a detriment when humans leave stuff that isn't edible but is out of the ordinary, like plastic bottles and stuff.
You leave your Ray-Bans on your towel.
No, they'll just eat it.
A quick womp session, you come back and there's a crab just munching on them.
Yeah, munching on it because it does have a crazy digestive system where even if it does eat something like that, it can usually get by. But yeah, it's pretty crazy. This is like one of those great examples of something that kind of seems like it's stuck in between evolutionary states.
Yeah. Because
it has it is a crab,
mm-hmm.
but it's evolved to the point of being so terrestrial that it can't breathe underwater anymore.
Oh.
It has these weird things. The exact name is kind of it has a what is that? Bronchiestral lung or whatever, yeah, that word. But it's kind of in between gills and lungs. It's not either, but it's as a byproduct of being a terrestrial only crab. But they can't, if you put them in water, they can only stay in water for 30 to 40 minutes before they'll drown.
And that's just them holding their breath.
That's just them holding their breath, yes. So
that's
but it's weird because the females lay their eggs in water. Because that's where they develop their shell.
Oh.
So the females will go down to the shore and wait for high tide, lay the eggs in the water, and let the eggs float down.
Mm-hmm.
And then hopefully some of the larvae get to spots where there's enough nutrients to start forming a shell.
Yeah.
And then they crawl out of the water before they drown.
That is not a good system.
Yeah, it is a weird. It's like a lot of it's an awkward cycle.
Well, they don't pop out fully grown. They have to.
No.
They have to molt their shells.
Yeah.
And do they go back into the water whenever they molt?
Yeah, they do. It's freaking weird.
That's so weird.
Yeah, it's like it can't decide if it's fully a land animal or not, but that's kind of where it is at this point.
So and
it has a crazy sense of smell. Underwater crabs have antennae to try and find their prey, but these have actually adapted to smell through the air like normal people, but to a ridiculous extent, to the point where that's how they smell these like unknown smells, and they know where to get food. So it's freaking weird.
How sensitive is it?
Sense of smell. I'm not really sure. I didn't find that out, but most of the sense of smell is to find insects. That's like, if that's abundant, that's what they go for. But they do eat out of necessity as well. They're all over, like Indonesia, Indian Ocean.
So they're on like small islands.
Mm-hmm. All small islands.
Okay, that's a
but
niche
they're
environment.
very close to being extinct.
No.
Yeah, they're not doing too well.
That's
Partly because of humans.
they're freaking cool.
Yeah, they're freaking. Seeing them on a palm tree is freaking spooky.
It's like the size of a like.
They're called coconut crabs because when they hug against palm trees, they kind of look like coconuts when they're the
That's
darker color.
so big.
Yeah, it looks like something straight. I think they kind of look like spiders, like the way their body
because they're
is shaped.
arthropods.
Well, yeah, but they like the
big claws up in front, like the fangs.
They kind of look a lot like a more spider than a crab. But that's partly because they're on land.
Is it possible that the face hugger from Alien is based off of this?
Maybe it looks a lot like it.
I mean, anything with freaky claws and as big as...
I don't know. Arthropods are always unsettling to people. It's a good place to get horror material. But yeah,
really just outlandish
they're also very territorial. They fight each other.
They're crabs that are territorial.
Yeah, they're known to attack humans as well.
That is
obviously they don't win because a crab is not hard to get away from.
I would let the crab win. I'd just run.
No. Like I mean, like they don't actually like kill anyone, but
that'd be.
Obviously, I bet if you let it would.
It'd, like snip at your ankles, get your Achilles.
Yeah, but they really just attack, which is partly another reason why they're probably extinct is because they keep on attacking people, and when you want to develop somewhere, you really can't have these running around.
That's.
But they use their pincers to crush the other coconut crab's shells.
Just like smack each other?
Yeah. Well, they grab on to the shells and they just crush.
Oh my.
Yeah.
And
so there's not very many of them. It's not like there's like colonies of these. They're independent.
Oh, you walk in, it's like 300 coconut crabs on the ground.
Yeah, they like a lot of tribal communities have made gods around them because they would name them because there's not very many. It's not hard to keep track of.
So you'd name
them? There's like 4 or 5 on an island, and so you'd be like, oh, dude, there's Lenny or whatever.
That's so weird.
Yeah, but they're freaking they're big.
That is so odd. They're some really cool animals.
Yeah.
Definitely give the coconut crab a quick scope when you've got the time.
A quick scope.
Oh yeah.
So what's your next?
I'm moving on to the octopus. Now you may say, but PJ, there's like a ton of species of octopus. To which I say, I don't really care. They're all so cool. I'm gonna cover each and every one of them, not in depth, but as a sort of whole family or genus of animals. Jacob and I had a talk a few months ago about how octopus and octopi or octopuses
too OP for their own good.
They're the most well-adapted animal on the planet or in the ocean. For example, most octopi can change the texture of their skin to better match their environment, along with a significant number of them having camouflage technology or capability, not technology. Dude, camouflage technology.
They are really smart though.
They're pretty smart. They're very intelligent. So they're able to not only camouflage into their environment but manipulate it. There's a species of octopus that grabs disused shells and uses 2 of its arms to hold the shells around it and then walk around with the remaining 6. And when it encounters enemies, it pulls the remaining 6 into the shell and clamps it shut. So this thing, it cruises around with like battle-ready armor.
Yeah, that's incredible.
So besides those, the passive camouflaging abilities, everyone knows an octopus can shoot ink, which not only sort of allows them to escape in a sort of smoke bomb scenario, it also sticks onto the noses of anything trying to hunt them and their vision and makes it really hard to find them. And some types of octopus that shoot ink can even the ink like stays in a blob and serves as like a decoy, so it looks kind of like an octopus. So and the predator might even attack that. Now we're gonna move on to the intelligence of an octopus. It is not only like has one brain, each leg functions as its own brain, but because each leg functions as its own brain, the central brain just distributes instructions like I want you to do this, but the leg brain doesn't give that it doesn't tell back to the main brain.
So it's like hierarchy.
Yeah, so the central brain tells each leg what to do, but it's a weird like sort of glitch where the legs don't tell the brain what they've done. So like one of the senses that humans have is proprioception, where you can close your eyes and still know where all your limbs are.
Uh-huh.
An octopus can't do that.
Really? Wait, so
if you were to blind it, it wouldn't know what it was doing.
So the brain is just like a commander or whatever.
Yeah,
and it just has to hope that
it uses its eyes to look around and check that its leg has done what it's told it to do.
That's so weird. So it's like queuing up commands and then
you just have to. You don't know if it's done until you actually physically check.
Because it doesn't have a sense of touch.
No, it has a sense of touch.
But then that would be reporting back to the...
Yeah, but the legs don't really report their location.
Okay, so it's the location specific.
There's a huge portion of our brains dedicated to proprioception, and we only have 4 limbs.
Yeah, so...
Octopus have 8.
Maybe that's... Yeah.
It might be a little bit of a sensory overload, so it's kind of better off to just delegate every little task. Mm-hmm. And then they do have ability to sense that, oh wait, that's octopus skin. I shouldn't be using the suction cups on that.
Oh yeah.
So it doesn't actually
tangle
itself up.
But we were talking about originally how maybe their extreme adaptation to their environment has hindered them.
We're not even done with the full adaptations. They can fit through any hole smaller than their beak because there's no skeleton and it's basically a thing of jello.
That's pretty good.
Their eyes are some of the best eyesight. They don't, unlike humans who have have blind spots because their cones are backwards. Octopi have their cones facing forwards, so they have no blind spots in their vision. And there's even some octopi that their eyeballs are kind of free floating, and no matter how they're oriented, their pupils remain horizontal.
Oh, so their eyes move.
Yeah, and their pupils are horizontal because they live in like a horizontal environment in the ocean where like there's always the horizon out.
Yeah,
and
because they don't go much farther above the seafloor. Right?
Yeah, they usually stick around on the seafloor, and some species have been known to crawl from tide pool to tide pool. So they're able to function on land for a while. And then some species that mimic octopus is famous. It impersonates sea snakes, lionfish, cuttlefish. So these things, they know what they're doing. They're pretty intelligent, and they're smart enough to the point where in Hawaiian mythology, the world or the universe gets recreated every so often, and an octopus is actually a leftover alien from the previous universe. And that's why it's so weird compared to everything else.
Yeah, I find them like seeing like the like video. You see, I feel like there's so many like videos and instances of like weird behavior that they do that seems very like creative and like their ingenuity is insane.
It's almost impossible to keep them as pets because they will break out of a cage.
Yeah, they're yeah.
They know how to solve puzzles. Mm-hmm. They're really incredible. They do have some issues. I mean, the only real issue that I found with them is the reproduction cycle requires both parents to die. The male dies within a month or 2 of mating.
For all species of octopus.
All species. And the female lays the brood of like 1 million or 2 million eggs.
But like
crazy amount of eggs, and guards it until they hatch, and the mom dies of starvation.
What percentage of the brood actually matures? Because it can't be a million.
It can't be a million. It's probably a smaller amount because they're literally just released out like really little tiny octopi, and they have to fend for themselves. So they're not really able to pass intelligence down from generation to generation. So they have to like relearn it every time, and that's why they have those puzzle solving skills. Mm-hmm. But because they're not able,
it's like us.
Yeah, but because they're not able to pass intelligence down and experiences from generation to generation, it might be.
What animals? Isn't there an animal that does that? Isn't
Well, there's animals that teach hunting to each other.
Yeah.
Yeah,
if any animal if we had the ability to pass experiences down when we reproduce.
Yeah, just genetically, it'd be way better.
Because we spend so much time of our lives.
We spend the first 18 years doing education,
just learning what our parents already know.
But if we were an octopus, we'd have to relearn everything every generation, like back from basic physics.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's
because they don't write anything down, etc.
Jacob and I were originally looking at the octopus, thinking, this thing is so smart, it's so well adapted. Why is it not taken over the planet before?
It's because it's too good at what it does.
It's too good. It's too OP.
It has no reason to become
any smarter,
or evolve its body to the point where it can encroach on new terrain, because it doesn't need to.
It's perfectly suited to its environment, and they do have a little bit of tool use, like for that one species that uses the shell.
Yeah.
Or
it's just after watching like videos and documentaries that show like octopi
and their weird behavior.
They look like, the more you see, the more human-like they look. They act.
They clearly think.
Mm-hmm.
And
it's one of the few animals, like a lot of animals you look at, you're like, you don't really think about what they're thinking because you can't know. Yeah. But like this, I'm like, really curious. You're like, there is some problem solving. It is probably thinking about something.
And then like even more, it has the water jet, so it can move around really fast. Some species are able to like detach a leg, like a lizard's able to detach the tail. This thing detaches a full leg, which will actually like move around, and I think the legs will even try to feed a mouth that isn't there, if they stumble upon food while it's detached.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Because it has its own little brain.
It's like we were forced to like make tools and stuff because we didn't have our body wasn't what other animals' bodies were. Like we couldn't beat a mammoth without tools.
Yeah.
But the octopus can, so it doesn't need to.
And I mean, all species are venomous.
Huh.
It's just a matter of how venomous. Like the blue-ringed octopus is the only one that can actually like kill humans with its poison. So the only actual like physical way in which the octopus is lacking is no hard shell, which that one guy fixed with picking up a shell and using it as mobile.
Yeah,
armor.
he used it as a tool because that was one thing his body didn't fill. But I mean, the no hard shell is also an advantage to some species.
Yeah, if it needed to squeeze through a small crevice, drop the shell, squeeze through.
Yeah, exactly.
And then there's a little bit, like in some species, there's a little bit of like a remainder of cartilage, but it's really not that much. Overall, octopi, super overpowered.
Yeah, they're broken.
Stay alert whenever you're in the water. I mean, they're probably not going to hurt you, but you can maybe learn something from them.
Yeah, seriously.
Who knows? All right, that pretty much wraps up the octopus. We're going to move on now to something so incredible. I didn't believe it was a real animal when Jacob first told me about it.
We're both kind of new to this because we just looked this up today, but it kind of has two different names depending on the state that it's in. At first, I bet if I was, I don't know, swimming, scubaing around, and I saw this, I'd think it was just another sea plant, but it's actually not. It's an animal, and when it's
what is it called?
It's called the crinoid. Is its full name when it's throughout its like lifespan, but it has different names depending on what point in its lifespan it's in. When it's attached to a stalk, it kind of looks like a tuft of feathers attached to one's like central point, with a mouth in the middle. But that mouth is kind of obscured by all the feathers that it has around it. And when it's attached to a stalk, which the stalk is connected to something else like a rock or driftwood or something.
I mean, it looks kind of like a fern, but more brightly colored.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, they do look like feathers, and they have these stalks, and at the end of the stalk is the actual organism. So at the beginning of its life, it has this stalk, and it looks like it's just like a plant. It looks like a plant. I mean, I would never think that it was something else. But the crazy thing is that when it gets older or when it's in danger, it disconnects from the stalk, and it uses these feathers to swim away from danger, or just when it gets old enough.
Yeah,
it's one of the weirdest things I've ever seen. Like if you look up a video of when it's disconnected from the stalk, it's called a feather star, and when it's on the stalk, it's called a sea lily. If you just look up feather star swimming, it's the weirdest thing ever.
It's super mesmerizing.
It's really cool to look at, but it looks alien. It looks very alien. Most of all the species, when they get older, they don't after they reach maturity, they disconnect from their stalk, and they're purely just these feather stars. But they're also like they've been around for freaking ever. And there's like examples of them. They're thought to like attach to moving objects.
So these like
in water.
are the fossils?
Yeah, the fossils.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, there's like a stalked crinoid, and it shows the difference between like the two different like states that it's in.
Are they able to move any other way than just swimming?
There's one that they found. These are like actively being researched because they're weird, and there was one they had a video that they caught just recently of it can move the stalk, like the bottom of the stalk.
It can like crawl around as well?
Yeah, it can crawl around as well. The stalks can move, but that was only observed once, so they don't really know why it does that. Maybe it feeds like it feeds by sitting in water, and it uses these feathers to pull food out of the water and pull it to their mouths. But it's weird. They're like this weird in between what you would think a plant would be and what an animal would be, even though they are an animal.
They look just like a plant.
They look like a plant, but they have male and female.
Well, I mean, there's plants that have male and female, but
yeah, but it's like they
don't reproduce using pollen and stuff like that. It's like
it's sperm and egg, and they keep the females keep the eggs in the stalks of in these tubes in the body.
Where the hell did these things come from?
Yeah, it's really weird. So, I don't know.
I mean, do they count as living fossils? Would you say they count as living fossils, Jacob?
I mean, yeah, they look so foreign. I mean, I would think so, because I mean, when they're attached to the stalk and they're attached to, even when they're off the stalk, they also can use the little tentacles in the bottom to attach themselves to like rocks or whatever. Yeah. And that when they're like that looks kind of just like a plant when they're on the stalk. But when you see what they do when they're threatened,
it looks like some weird sort of jellyfish kind of.
Yeah, it looks like a jellyfish that has just feathers instead of the
dome thingy.
The dome, the jelly dome. Yeah, they're freaking. They're really weird. Like, you just look up a video and it's like the diver's swimming around and it's like, oh, I gotta look for cool stuff, and then he finds this thing and he pulls it off of the stalk and like kind of floats down. You're like, oh, okay, he freaking killed it. But then it hits the ground and then like you shake a little bit and the thing just starts swimming upwards. It's like,
it's weird. I think the ocean is a weird place because
the ocean has the weirdest stuff.
Out of the animals we've covered so far, 2 of them have been from the ocean, and guess what? This next one is from the ocean.
The segue, holy crap.
This is a mantis shrimp. You've probably heard of these on a BuzzFeed list, just like ours, which is an animal that has 16 photoreceptors in its eyes.
Holy crap.
So humans have 3. Humans have red, green, and blue. Mantis shrimp have red, green, blue, and everything else. They can see UV and polarized light, which makes them incredibly well adapted. They've been around for a while. People have known about them. The earliest, they sort of, their family came into existence 400 million years ago, and they've basically been kicking butt in the ocean world ever since. They're called sea locusts by the ancient Assyrians and prawn killers in Australia. And they're even colloquially referred to as thumb splitters because they're so, like, their claws are so strong they can split open someone's thumb, spear it, and they've even had strikes so strong that they break through aquarium glass.
Holy crap.
So you really don't want to keep these things as a pet because they will break out of the aquarium. There's around 450 species of mantis shrimp that have been discovered, and almost all of them have this obscene number of photoreceptors in their eyes that give them like some really cool vision traits. Their vision is so specialized that there's 3 sort of rows or registers of photoreceptors in each eye. That means that each individual eye has trionic vision. So each individual eye has depth perception, and they're on individual stalks, so they can move independently of each other, kind of like a chameleon. And they get a lot of their abilities from polarized light. And polarized light is light that has like a weird angle to it. So when you're wearing polarized sunglasses, it's linearly polarized. This means like it always filters out half the amount of light coming in.
Mm-hmm.
And that's always good. So it just cuts down the amount of light. And LCD screens, like on the really basic calculators.
Or on a lot of computers.
On a lot of computers.
You have to have a polarizing film over it to organize the light. So
yeah, so it has it's a special like type of way that you could maybe even like encode light.
Mm-hmm.
And these shrimp are actually able to deal with circular polarized light, which is light that the orientation of the polarization is constantly circling.
Huh.
There's no human-made technology that can do that.
That's weird.
It's so advanced that not even we've been able to figure it out. And if we're able to figure it out, there's an idea that we could use it to increase the amount of data stored on like Blu-ray and like laser discs exponentially.
Mm-hmm.
Because instead of like polarizing it in one dimension, we get 2 or 3 dimensions.
Yeah.
Of just rotating it around. So you think to yourself, what use could polarized vision be to a mantis shrimp? Like they're just these little tiny shrimp.
Is it a certain prey that they need to be able to see? Like
it's more for their own deal. They some of them actually phosphoresce when they're in mating season. The males are able to, and being able to see who's like ready to mate and who isn't is important. So it actually it enables mantis shrimp to have a little bit of like private communication using polarized light that no other animals can see.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And they have UV light, which is important for knowing.
You don't want to be glowing and let predators know where you are.
Yeah.
I guess.
You have UV light, which is important for like seeing the sun and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And the polarized light actually allows them to see the moon better. So it's theorized that they can use the moon to see and know tides, because the mantis shrimp that live close into shore mate during high tides. So the eggs are higher up, so they know like when it is mate, because they can tell the phase. They could possibly tell the phase of the moon.
That's freaking weird. And if that's true, that's ridiculous. They
have pretty interesting memories as well, where they are able to like remember some of their neighbors, of the mantis shrimp that live nearby them. So they're not dumb, and the way that they process information in their eyes is also interesting. For humans, our vision just kind of goes straight back to our brain, where it's then sorted out with and then dealt with.
Mm-hmm.
But with a mantis shrimp, it deals with the information on the eyes itself, and then sends the processed information to the brain. So they get processed information to their brain, and we get raw data to our brain. So it actually takes less, it's more efficient for the brain, but it means that even though they have those 16 different photoreceptor cells, they kind of experience color the same way we do. It's not like the incredible like thing you might imagine, like, oh, they add like 7 or they add 13 more colors.
Yeah. They
just get that information and it's kind of like understood by them. Mm-hmm. Whereas we actually get our vision dealt with like in our brain, so it's part of like our experience.
Yeah.
But they're pretty cool animals. They're funky. They're really inspiring science, and it's sort of
well, it's like there are some things that nature still do a lot better than we do.
Yeah, they do a lot better than we do.
There's that whole field of people who try and mimic nature or mimic nature with technology, like Boston Dynamics and
and it's not just only their traits that we're interested in. The Chinese is interested in them as a delicacy, where it's known as the pissing shrimp, because when you pick it up, it will occasionally shoot a jet of water out of it. So that's the mantis shrimp. Not only does it absolutely destroy our scientific understanding of vision and gives us something to work for in the area of polarized light, it can break your thumb with a hit from its claw, break out of any aquarium you put it into, and is also a delicacy in China.
That's the pissing shrimp.
Oh yeah.
So next animal on my list, and the last one on my list, is the spotted salamander, which is the state amphibian of Ohio and South Carolina, if you were wondering.
The state oh my, what a title.
What a title. In case that ever gets shows up on a test, you'll know.
If you find yourself on Jeopardy.
Yeah, the state amphibian of Ohio and South Carolina. It's pretty much just like a black, very leathery looking salamander that's decently small. It's It's only 5.9 to 9.8 inches long.
But it's not all black, is it, Jacob?
No, it's not. It's spotted for a reason. It's spotted with greenish yellow dots.
Mm-hmm.
And the weird thing about this is, I mean, it's not completely proven, but it's thought that it has, we know it has algae inside of the animal itself.
And does the spot?
Yeah, the spots are also the algae growing outside, but it also has the algae growing inside of it. But the weird thing is that we think that the photosynthesis that the algae does for its own sustenance is used to sustain the salamander a little bit.
Wow. So
which is weird.
Is it the first sort of like...
It's not, I mean, it's not, the hot title for this salamander is salamander that photosynthesizes, but I mean, it's one of those symbiotic relationships. It's not like it's actually doing it, but it kind of is, because they're living off of him. But the data that they've used to try and support this is that they find that when they have like broods of eggs and they use a chemical that kill the algae that live in the eggs, they develop a very much slower, much smaller, and they often die.
Oh wow!
So they think that the algae is pretty much necessary for these salamanders to even survive.
So the salamander can't survive without the algae. Can the algae survive without the salamander?
No, the algae has to live with the salamander. This specific type of algae.
So it's only one type of algae can live with the spotted salamander,
and it won't survive anywhere else. It has to live on the salamander. So there's obviously a trade being
there's something that caused it to happen.
It's under research. There's not too much on it, but the thought is that they're both integral to each other living.
That's just, I mean, like humans have, like bacteria living in the gut and all that stuff that kind of helps you out, and even mitochondria in a cell, but those are bacteria interacting with animal cells. But to get plant cells interacting with animal cells,
it's weird. But it's also weird that like this isn't like it's not like the salamander like actively seeks out this algae and like eats it or like
it just
rubs it on its body or anything. It's like it lives in it. So like when the salamander reproduces, the algae comes with it. It's weird.
So that's two animals you've covered that are like sort of plant animal
hybrids,
gray zone areas.
Yeah, it's weird. I don't know if the algae actually has its own name. I think it's just known as the algae on the salamander.
What is it? Right?
Is it right?
Amblystomus.
Yep. That is the algae.
It means something. It's an algae. But
something Latin. I don't know.
That's a really weird symbiotic relationship that allows an animal and a plant to survive on one creature. That's
Though there was also I was reading that the spots and like the color of the spots, it's like, you know how traits are passed down from like the parents. Some of the genes of the algae is.
Oh, so
it's like there's a whole different like cross of like, it's like when the two like they like the cell like when the mommy salamander
and the daddy salamander love each other very much.
Yeah, when the dad and the mom reproduce, like not only do all the genes of the salamander cross, but then like I guess it just picks one of the algae.
So it gets or
a mix of both. Like there's some spotted that have like two different colored spots, because I mean they're mom and dad have different algae types.
So
it's like here, blood type but for spots.
This entire like little presentation has given me a whole bit of hope for what science can do, be it give us algae living inside of us for energy like the spotted salamander.
We're just gonna become solar humans.
Oh, that'd be so much. You just got sun tanning and you get like swole from it. Crazy polarized vision or data storage from the Mantis Shrimp. Some sort of invincibility or understanding of panspermia from the tardigrade. And this was such a wild ride. The coconut crab and its weird sort of transition stage, and the hunting habits of the butcher bird. This has been a wild ride of how extreme and weird life can be. And I really want to thank you, Jacob, for taking time out of your day.
No problem.
To come on Partially Scientific the truly most overhyped and extremely ambitious podcast I personally have ever undertaken. Side note, it's also the only podcast I've undertaken. But it's been a whole lot of fun, Jacob. Thanks for coming on. Join me next week when I cover something. Probably I'll just start texting people and ask if they want to know anything fun. If you enjoyed this video and or were able to survive these 55.5 minutes, props to you. Like, comment, subscribe, do all that fun stuff. I don't really care. This is for Cass. Bolton, if you're listening to this, that's like 100 minutes of my Cass project you've listened to, which I'm proud of. So thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule. Take care. Stay woke, America. This has been Partially Scientific.